elimination of hurry. And this is what brought the idea for a panel discussion in the first place. And in the book, there are 4 practices that are going to come up in the conversation tonight that are the application around how to eliminate hurry. And I wanted to let you know what these practices are in advance if you want to write them down to track where we're going. So the first one in eliminating hurry is silence and solitude. The second is Sabbath. The third is simplicity. And the fourth is slowing down. So let me introduce who our panelists are. We have Yvonne Veal, who is our adult formation pastor here at South Fellowship. We have Aaron Bjorklund, who is our worship pastor here at South Fellowship. Ruth Nichols, who is bringing the experience in our panel, is one of our leaders here at Sisterhood, as well as a longtime member at South. And then we have Zach Wiegert, who is bringing our youth in the panel next to our experience. Zach is a professional digital storyteller, and each of them are bringing their own experience of having read and reread and underlined and highlighted parts in this book, but also having wrestled with hurry in their life and how to eliminate it. So we're going to dive in with the question that we're all kind of asking of, why is this a big deal? Out of any topic that we could choose for a panel, why talk about hurry? Because our life consists of going and coming and doing and grinding. So what's the big deal? It's kind of moot, right? Right? I don't know. Let me answer that question by sharing a conversation in the book with you. John Ortberg, a pastor and writer, defines hurry as involving excessive haste or a state of urgency. Hurry is associated with words such as hurl, uproar, hurricane. Hurry is a state of frantic effort one falls into in response to their inadequacy or their fear or their guilt. Dallas Willard, a philosopher and follower of Jesus, was once asked by John, this pastor, "What do I need to do to become the me that I want to be?" And Willard replied, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." You see, hurry is the greatest enemy of spiritual life today. So therefore, you must ruthlessly eliminate your hurry. So if hurry is defined as the greatest enemy in our life today, what does that mean? Because we know that an enemy seeks to kill and destroy. And if hurry is being defined as an enemy, then we have to ask the question, what does hurry look like? So panelists, that's the fun start that you guys get to talk about and I get to listen to alongside everyone. We're going to kick off the discussion by asking, what does hurry look like in your personal life or what you've observed in our culture? Aaron, can you kick us off?
The irony about being on a panel talking about hurry is my week this week. I've been frantically running from thing to thing to thing to thing. Yeah, hurry is like, for me, it's that feeling of like deep down underneath the surface, that sort of anxiety, like I'm gonna miss something. If I'm not on my A game, I'm gonna miss something. And for some of us, it's a struggle not to live in that state perpetually. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, but it's that condition of like, I'm gonna miss something and an anxiety underneath the surface.
I don't think you can answer the question fully. We're just getting started. So, Yvonne, when you've looked at hurry in your life, what does it look like?
Actually, I feel like I could tell you what it feels like. To me, I think hurry feels like speeding. My life is on like full throttle, or I'm trying to get to a destination and I'm walking fast-paced, or it feels like even if there's nothing in my life happening necessarily, it feels like percolating inside of me, where even maybe I have nothing on my calendar for the whole morning, and yet inside I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to be doing something, even though I'm not doing something. So it feels like percolating or speeding.
In our culture, typically we don't associate the things that we do with feeling them. So give a story, any of you, to how hurry feels in your life or how it looks right now or areas you've seen it observed.
For me, hurry shows up with the holidays. I can be quiet most of the time, but when the glitter comes out, my imagination goes wild, and I want to bring Martha Stewart to her knees in awe. And I know some people really, they can handle it, because some people have found there needs to be a margin between the load and the limit. And that piece is just missing in my DNA. So that's my struggle.
That's an interesting word there, margin. Where does margin and hurry have a relationship? Or is it difficult to define at the current moment in our culture?
I guess I feel like hurry is almost a complete absence of margin. Like when I'm going through life and there's just like, I'm just jumping from one thing to another with no time for my brain to just be, that's where I start to get into that hurried state. And like Yvonne brought up, that feeling of just like, I'm doing nothing, but I feel like I have to be doing something. That's that, like, I think that's because of a lack of margin. Like if we can get comfortable in a space where we can just exist without having to constantly be doing something, I think that's where the slowing down can kind of start to happen.
So keep talking with that. You said, for me to be comfortable, I mean, I'm thinking back to how hurry is defined as an enemy at the very beginning of this book. What does that mean if it's keeping us from being comfortable? Zach, you don't have to respond. Okay. Anybody can jump in here.
I guess I feel like hurry is just a trap. I feel like because there's this expectation, even in culture, that what we accomplish is who we are, that now if I'm not doing anything, then my being isn't good, or I'm not enough. So I feel like it's just a trap, and yeah, it makes us uncomfortable because it suffocates us.
So if any of you were, at a bird's eye view, looking at our little world in America here, and we're watching a trap of people in the midst of their hurrying, like what thoughts come to your mind in the midst of that picture, looking at our culture and how it is a part of our culture, hurrying is?
I guess one of the things that I really think, or that I see, especially in my generation, up to like early, I'd say like early 20s through like mid 30s, is just the whole idea of hustle culture, where there's just this idea that you have to be constantly grinding to make money, to build your business or whatever, with like that complete absence of margin. And like I'll be scrolling through Instagram, which is a whole nother topic. And there's, I see posts about like work, like don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. And I mean, like there's people who are literally like prioritizing like their accomplishment and their money making over their health. And that's just something, I mean, it blows my mind that like we've gone that far in that direction.
Yeah, I think the nature, especially in the West, capitalism rewards hurry. There's so many things, like culturally speaking, that we get identity from productivity, we get money from productivity, we get all of these things, and it's like this self-affirming cycle in our culture. Meanwhile, it flies against a design that God made for us. And so, yeah, it's sort of so I guess to your question, what do I see when I see a culture that's full of hurry? There was actually, I heard this statement, let's see if I can remember it exactly. It was something like, we are trying to create productivity without presence. And so, like, true productivity is not a monetary return. It's not an identity status in the pecking order of other human beings. True health as a human being is wholeness in the presence of God. But it's a really big and it's a really loud lie that our culture feeds to us. And it has so many dopamine triggers in our brains to say, yes, I'm on the right track. Because the money feeds that dopamine trigger, the affirmation of others feeds that, and it just becomes a self-feeding engine that leads us down a path towards this lie that actually drives us away from presence rather than towards it.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, not only is it like a problem with like the small businesses and like the people trying to make money, but the other problem I see among people my age is like college students who are just so slammed and overwhelmed with stuff that they physically cannot have margin in their lives. And like Aaron was talking about, like I think that it's so opposing to like our creative design and like who we were actually made to be. It's just like it hurts to see people suffering like they are.
Yeah, I feel like trying to tie it together. It feels like, this trap that we feel like we're in makes us feel like margin isn't allowed. And that kind of slowing isn't allowed. So we think of margin as more time for productivity rather than time to actually rest, So it's like, I'm going to meet somebody even this morning, Lauren, and what can I get done before I go and meet Lauren? But then I'm pressing in on time, I'm speeding, I'm running through the red light to make it there at least 5 minutes after the time we scheduled. And then, I'm supposed to be speaking on an unhurried life. But I think we all do that, right? We all try to make the most of our margin rather than using our margin for the presence of God and for becoming present to our circumstances. So I don't know, I see it just robbing me of the relational connectivity, the presence of being with another person. It often, I know I took a phone call today and I was still working on my computer and I'm half listening. I'm not totally present with one because I think that I can get multiple things done.
It's interesting. You're bringing up like the typical college schedule that students go through of time that they have to keep from class to class to event. You're talking about the work schedule of I have to get there on time. I'm running out of time. So I'm multitasking to use my time better. But is it better? I don't know. And I think that there's a relationship here between time as the most valuable thing and how that produces this sense of hurry in our life. So how does time as a resource that we have differ from time as a gift that we've been given?
One thing that I want to touch on really quick, just before I fully get to that question, was I know you just brought up multitasking. And I was listening to a podcast and I've watched a couple of videos about this, and there's been a lot of research done, and the human brain is actually incapable of multitasking. It's like it's physically impossible for us to be focused on more than one thing at a time. So when we look at multitasking, it's like the only thing that exists is it's an illusion, because we can't be fully present with more than one thing at one time. So when we try to multitask, it just splits our attention and we can't do one single thing to the best of our ability. Anyway, back to your question.
Yeah, we have time as a resource, and that's how we approach it, because we allot it to different things. We fill it with things. It's a resource that we use. But the book talks about time as a gift to help us have a holistic life, a life that is easy, a life that we get to be present in. And Ruth, I'm curious what you have to say about this, because I know that you have managed and you have moved and you have met so many people.
And made lots of mistakes. I think it's a constant battle. It's part of the enemy. It's when we reach one level, we fight it there. We go on and we fight it another. I think one way that we can make peace is deliberateness, and make sure that what we do is deliberate. That's using time or as a gift, and making sure that it aligns with our values, instead of just walking through the mall can end up being a half a day, and we think, what? This isn't my value, but deliberately choosing sometimes to relax, and if that's a stroll through the mall or the park or whatever, fine, but let it have some plan and some deliberate, hopefully guided by God.
I was thinking of the fact that time is considered one of the 5 love languages. It's a gift, and I would say it's probably my top love language. Like when I have a friend that wants to spend time with me and listen and be present, like all of the things that we're talking about, and really know me in that place, it feels like such a delight, and I receive it as gift. I receive it as love. So that was one of the things I was thinking about in terms of a gift. I think we all love it when people give us their time, but we don't always like to give our time, I think, as a gift.
Yeah, I think it also, time is, well, one of the things that I've noticed about how God tends to work in the world is he's extremely patient, obnoxiously patient, actually. Sometimes that's wonderful, right? It's like, oh, I'm so glad he's patient with me. But there's also this sense that, like, could he just transform me already? Like, can I just be done with this or that or this other thing in my life? And even the seasons that we're experiencing now, weather turning from summer to fall to spring and all of these sorts of things, it's hardwired into how God created the universe, that he's okay with transformation taking a very slow amount of time. And then there's a dying season, and then there's a resurrection season, and all of these sorts of things. And so he's a patient God. And he's okay with taking long periods of time to answer the question. I was looking up, one of my favorite songs is the song Seasons. We've done it multiple times here at South, but there's this line in there that says, you could have saved us in a second, instead you sent a child. Wow, okay. A child that then has to grow up and mature and on and on and on and on, and then start a ministry, and then teach the disciples, and then die on a cross. So time, he decided to take time for that solution to the human condition. And if we're not okay with having a relationship with time that has some measure of patience, then we're kicking against the goads of how we've been designed to mature and transform as human beings.
To your point, Aaron, I think it's like you're describing, like the way we function in Western culture is like almost, it's like the complete antithesis of like how we were actually designed to exist. And I just completely lost my train of thought. I'm going to come back to this.
That's okay. You can cut me off when you think of it.
Yeah.
I've been wondering what Aaron was saying made me think of how I got really excited reading the book, and especially the chapter of Sabbath. Because in the book, the chapter on Sabbath is beautiful, and it makes it sound like you get a vacation once a week.
I just remember what I was going to say. Can I say it really quick?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, sorry.
I'll leave you hanging. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, when we look at the character of Jesus, like he was brought to earth as a baby and had to grow up into an adult before any of the major work was done. If Jesus had come nowadays, he could speak to 6 billion people in 30 minutes, and yet he came at a time when the fastest mode of transportation was walking. And that's just, that's crazy, because we can have an impact so quickly. Just you put a video out, it could have 5 million views in an hour. You just never know. But so yeah. Okay.
I'm sitting here thinking, man, Jesus had time for Sabbath. Come on. I was gonna say that I got so excited learning about here's what Sabbath can look like. And since I've read that chapter, I've tried implementing it over and over and over again. And my Sabbath just gets taken away within the hour of the day. And I want to hear some stories of difficulty and struggle that you guys have had as you have intentionally and deliberately tried to eliminate hurry in your life. Where has it been hard? Where have you gotten frustrated that it is something that an enemy is trying to influence over you?
I just feel like it's always hard. I can't think of an example right now, but I've already told you, different things just in the everyday movement of life, And I would say that I'm in a season right now that my life isn't actually jam-packed with things that I have to be at. So that's an interesting dynamic for me, that I'm having to learn how to settle my inside hurry when my outside life isn't really at a fast pace like it has been in other times of my life. I remember a season in my life where Sabbath actually came really easy because my life was pretty busy, but I lived in a country and in a city that they shut everything down on a Sunday. And so I just got to take walks, and I got to enjoy my Christian community and worship with them and have space to decompress. But I come back to the States and I take a position as a pastor, and now I'm working on Sundays, and it's hard to know what Sabbath looks like when everyone else isn't taking the same Sabbath as I am. So that's been a personal challenge for me in Sabbath keeping. It's not just a day off. It's meant to be a sacred day for the Lord and to be unhurried unto Him. And I think I get pockets of Sabbath in between other pockets of working.
One of the things I remember from a Sunday school teacher when I was in college was, she said, now you girls are going to have two choices, good and the best. And I think maybe that's the struggle that we have with the Sabbath. We do some pretty good things on Sunday. We get up early and prepare for children's ministry, or stay late and clean up the coffee service, or whatever. And it's pretty good. And it's a time thing too. Maybe we just need to weave in some threads of the best and see how it progresses from there.
I know we may talk about solitude and silence and these things later, but for Sabbath, the struggle is shutting it off for me. I wish I could just shut off all of the thoughts and all of the ideas and on and on and on and on. And honestly, the majority of the time, the only way I can shut it off is by replacing with something that's even noisier or more stimulating. And so, it's an addiction for me to just be thinking about something all the time or learning something all the time. And so that's the struggle for me. And honestly, a Sabbath isn't enough. When I've taken more extended retreats, there's like a detoxing amount of time that takes place, and then I crash, and then I see fruit. And so that's kind of annoying because it's really hard to carve out enough time to actually see the harvest of Sabbath. So that's the struggle for me, is I'm really stubborn and slow in getting to that place of solitude and Sabbath.
Because for me, the struggle is that the concept of Sabbath is to take one day out of the week where it's just focus on unhurrying, refocusing on God. And like my schedule is just so spontaneous and crazy that I don't always, it's hard for me to pick a day because there's no consistency with it. So I really find myself just more so looking for moments of Sabbath throughout the week. If I find myself with an hour or even just 30 minutes where I can just stop, I try to take that time, since I have such a hard time finding a full day to take out. But I really would like to get to the place where I can just be okay, Friday, nothing else. So.
Yeah, because our lives are full. That's a reality that every single person here knows. Our lives are full from morning till night. And for most of us, that's not changing anytime soon. And it's really easy to think, okay, well, if hurry is an enemy, but my life is full and that can't change, I guess I'm just in it. I guess I'm just going to experience this horrible thing for the rest of my life. But Aaron, you mentioned something previously when we were talking about this, that there's a difference between having a busy life and having a hurried life. Can you explain the difference there?
Well, actually, I quoted Dallas Willard on that. This was really helpful for me because I started hearing about these ideas of slowing down, about leveraging Sabbath, about all of the stuff we're talking about. And I'm like, okay, I hear really smart people and really wise people say that this is important. I read about stuff like this in the scriptures, but I gotta get stuff done. You can't just sit around and have stuff get done. So, there was this massive tension for me. And then I heard this quote by Dallas Willard that said, busy is a condition of the body, hurried is a condition of the soul. Jesus was a very busy man. In fact, when he was tired and grieving, and he went up on the mountain to grieve the loss of one of his cousin, John the Baptist, and then the crowds showed up, and he's trying to get away and find margin, and then they show up, and he has compassion on them, and he continues to heal them. Jesus was a busy man, but can you imagine any story in the scriptures where you have any sense of hurry? No, I can't find a single story throughout the Gospels where he had a sense of hurry. So I latched onto that quote, and I was like, okay, I got to figure that out. Because in order to function as a human being in America, does feel like there needs to be some measure of busy, or at least some seasons of busy. And, but I want to be able to be busy with my body while also having an unhurried soul in the presence of God that is constantly connected to him. And I think that the other spiritual practice that this book talks about are tools that you can learn to develop habits that allow for that to be the case. So.
Zach, I want you to piggyback on that, because you've shared with our panel that you've tried implementing the practice of simplicity, and that you've had opportunity around the practice of silence and solitude. So coming off of God works in slow ways to bring transformation, what does it look like in your life to know that God is bringing transformation in your practices of simplicity?
We're talking about just simplicity or simplicity and silence and
You
solitude.
take it where you will.
Great, fantastic. I'll do both. So I'll start with silence and solitude. That's been, like, out of these 4 practices, been the one that's been the easiest for me to implement and the most effective. And it was shortly after I read this book, which is, I think, probably April or May this year. I started trying to be really intentional about taking time to just be. And I try to take that time first thing in the morning and just sit and just do 10 minutes of meditation, and then spend some time in scripture. And just even if I can only squeeze in that 20-30 minutes at the beginning of the day, I found that was really able to kind of set the tone for the rest of my day. And in a bigger sense, I spend a lot of time outdoors, up high in the mountains, backpacking, hiking, whatever. And it's I find that those moments where I'm on top of a mountain, watching the sunrise over the clouds, by myself, there's a peace there in that solitude that just exists nowhere else. And that's been hugely impactful for me. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently, how when you put yourself in a scenario like that, you exist within creation exactly as it was intended to and exactly as you were intended to. Versus when we come into the city, it's we're surrounded by so much man-made chaos that it's almost impossible for us to really find that same sense of solitude. So one of the big battles for me recently has been, how do I take that version of myself and how do I live out of that in everyday life? That's a challenge that I'm working through a lot. As far as simplicity, I don't like owning things. There's too much stuff. I remember I went on a 3-month trip to Europe right after high school, and I had a backpack and a suitcase with 3 pairs of pants and a couple shirts and then jackets. I just remember coming home, opening my closet and being no, this is not good. So I spent a lot of time cleaning out. There's a challenge. It's called the 33 challenge, or I don't remember the exact name, but it's where you just try to pare down your entire closet to 33 items for 3 months. And I was cool. I don't think I need more than that, period. So I just went and just got rid of everything except for 33 items of clothing. And that's where I kind of just, and I still feel there's too much, but that's what felt realistic for me, to just not have excess.
Ruth, I have a question for you with that follow-up. For those of us who crave silence and who crave solitude, but it's not a reality and can't be reality for moms or for dads or for business owners that have to respond to emails if they want to get a client, if they want to get paid. What does it look like to pursue fighting against hurry when some of these practices are not possible right now in your life?
It's got to start with an attitude, I think. Maybe a shield, if you want to think of it that way. One of my favorite verses is, abide in me and I'll abide in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. But with Christ, we can accomplish much. And it's a tribute to God when we do produce fruit. So we're not saying don't do anything. We're saying do it with the attitude of knowing where our strength comes from. And sometimes, this is not a new challenge. John Wesley and his brothers that were so famous during their time of revivals and starting the Methodist Church, and the songbooks have got some things in them. Their mother had 16 children. And I imagine there was a little noise and not a lot of quiet there, but somehow she was able to teach all of them to read. Homeschool was a thing back then too. And but when she had had enough, if she was about to lose it, she would put a clothespin on her apron, and then the 16 children knew to give her some space. If she really lost it, she threw the apron over her head. So there is a way, and the challenge isn't new.
Well, if I could piggyback on that, I think it is a misconception sometimes that we can't carve out the time. And the reason I think that is because if I were to tell you from a more capitalistic or monetary thing that the key to success in life, that you will make more sales, make more money, have more friends, live your best life ever, is all you have to do is to not do stuff every day and not do stuff sometimes. And if I were to try and frame it under more of the same reward systems that we tend to operate under, you would find time for it. And that's actually the invitation of Jesus. Not that you get more money and more friends. What the invitation is to thriving. And this is one of the counterintuitives of the kingdom of God. That we know intuitively because we see it in movies and Hollywood and various different things, money doesn't make happiness. We know these things at the surface level. And the kingdom of God is an invitation to say, I'm going to invest XYZ and make time for it. And I get that that's complicated. Believe me, I fight for it. We have kids, all of those sorts of things, especially for moms out there. It's insanely difficult. But, again, another Dallas Willard quote, the best thing you have to offer your kids is the person you're becoming. It's not the clean kitchen or the whatever. It's the person you're becoming. The best thing you have to offer your workplace is the person you're becoming. The best thing you have to offer God is the person you're becoming. It's that important. And solitude in the presence of God is like not doing something is somehow extremely productive in his kingdom.
That's good. Preach it. I think, as we talk about hurry, and I think generally we might have an understanding that hurry gets in the way. It's an obstacle. It's a pain in the butt, right? And I think maybe if you've been following Jesus for a while, you know that slowing down and spending time with him is rewarding, and it does help create us, So there's this tension in my life and in my heart, because I know that I'm trapped in hurry, and I know the invitation. So how do I get there when I feel like all this does, reading a book like this, is make me feel like frustrated, and my critical voice inside turns up and says, I'm talking to myself, and then the enemy loves to latch onto that and say, yeah, you're going to stay stuck in this. You're never going to get over this. So I just feel like there's tension when we know that it is going to help us, and yet we feel stuck. And so I think that, the best thing is to become aware of it, and the awareness might first frustrate the heck out of us, but then begin to just ask the Lord to help become present. And I know someone's here with us today, and she is so wise that there was a time when she was super busy and had like 1 minute with the Lord. And she said, Lord, I'll just give you this 1 minute. And in that 1 minute, the Lord said something along the lines of 1 minute in my courts is 1,000. Just by taking a little step in this direction, how much I think God is beyond us. And so even if we don't feel like we have an hour or 6 hours to go and spend with the Lord, maybe we have a minute. And becoming present in that 1 minute could be the thing that turns your heart to to be present. And for me, I've just decided that deep breathing is super important for me first thing in the morning, because I tend to wake up as I have a little bit of Enneagram 1 in me, which wants to get things accomplished and has a high critical voice inside that so many days growing up, I just woke up and I felt like I was already behind. And I have heard that story, like, you're already behind. And for me, deep breathing is just a way to stop and say, Lord, you've given me life. You've given me breath. I'm taking this moment to stop and just to do something really simple, because I can do that. And I know that I can return to that breathing when I'm getting ready to step into a meeting or meet with someone for care, or stop and be present to a phone call or those types of things.
I'm hearing from each of you talking about being present with Jesus and pursuing a whole life with Jesus. And in the book, there is a chapter all about the easy yoke that Jesus offers. Can one of you explain more about what this yoke looks like and what it means to be yoked with Jesus?
I guess for me, that illustration is that we're pulling together, and that I'm not having to bear the weight of that whole work, but that he's helping carry that weight. And so actually, it feels easy when you're able to step into a situation in your own human size and know that you can only bring what's in your human package. But that the Lord is going to take it and infuse it with him and himself. And that's actually what's going to be the effectiveness in loving someone, in listening to someone, in getting a task done.
I actually wrote down phrases from that in the Message version. Are you tired? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything on you heavy or ill-fitting to you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Work didn't happen after the fall. Work was ordained from the beginning. Adam and Eve had things to do, animals to name, and et cetera, plants to rearrange is my guess that Eve wanted done. But it will be unforced rhythms of grace. We'll get it done, but it won't be too heavy for us if we're walking with alongside, in rhythm with Jesus.
Well, and that's so neat, because the last part of that verse said he won't give you anything ill-fitting, right? And we talked earlier about how feeling hurried is uncomfortable, and how it truly is something that is keeping you from settling into this yoke that is pulling you together and keeping you together. What else? What's your experience been with the easy yoke as you've taken on the fight around hurry?
One thing that I've been thinking about a lot just recently, literally just in the last week, is thinking about the easy yoke and its relationship with resilience. There's a guy, I've read a lot of his stuff, his name is Rick Alexander, and he said the other day that resilience is not about resisting the change and challenge in life, it's learning to flow through it without losing track of who you are. And I paused it and just sat. I was like, oh my gosh, like that.
Yeah, can you read that again?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
Resilience is not about resisting the change and challenge in life. It's about learning to flow through it without losing track of who you are. And then I started thinking about the easy yoke, and in those times, like a yoke was like a set of teachings or just like a way of life prescribed by somebody. So Jesus's yoke is just his way of life. So when I think about that yoke, my thought was just that Jesus's yoke is easy. And I believe that the understanding of that easy yoke is what brings us into that flow state of resilience. So being able to just be faced with the challenges and the changes, but being able to flow with it and not come up against a wall with it.
That's good. I talked a little bit about this idea of this relationship between busy and hurry, and going to your question, the easy yoke is, I've tasted little glimmers of this idea where it's unbelievable how much you can get done when you step into the rhythms of the way that we were designed to function, and you get your life ordered properly. You prioritize the presence of God. You prioritize relationships properly. You prioritize these different things. And I just reflect back on a season of life when I was in college, and I was just about to come to my senior year, and in order to graduate that next cycle, I had to take on extra credits. I was already working a full-time job, and I was married, and we just got pregnant with our first child. She was due right before my senior year. So that meant more things were happening. Oh, and I'd gotten promoted to leadership, so I had more responsibilities at work. So I had a full-time job, more credits than I'd ever had, and I was like, it's not adding up. In fact, I was like, Lord, I cannot add up the hours when I'm going to do homework, when I'm going to go to work, and I was working overnights and all this stuff. And I was just at the end of myself. And I said, okay, God, the only way this works is if something supernatural happens. And I just did an experiment. And I said, I'm going to order my life the way I think your word tells me to order it. And you are just going to have to make me ridiculously productive. And so for the first time in my college career, I stopped working on Saturdays on homework. No homework on Saturdays. And then up until that point, 4 years prior, I just did homework in every waking second. I added a date night with my wife, and I did devotions every morning. I got to work early, and I would just spend 30 minutes just in his presence. My grades got better. My marriage got better. And this isn't a formula, like I can't promise all of these things. But it was a season of life where I was insanely busy, but he honored that desire for me to order my life. And it was, to this day, I still can't quite add up the hours. But it was like the bread and the fish. He multiplied and multiplied and multiplied because I set aside time for him and the other priorities that he said. That's the easy yoke.
That's beautiful. How cool. You know, I'm picturing what your soul must have been experiencing and almost what it looked like. And Yvonne, your entire life is around soul care. Can you describe? No pressure.
Where are we going with this?
Can you describe or tell a personal story around the state of the soul in the midst of the easy yoke and being in the presence of Jesus compared to the state of the soul in the midst of the enemy of hurry?
I feel like we could all imagine something.
Yeah, it's probably a personal answer for each one of us.
Yeah, I think, at the very beginning, I just said what it feels like to me is inside percolating. And I think when I feel in step with him, or when I feel like doing the easy yoke with him, it feels so much more settled. And I feel way more confident that I'm just me and he's him and we're doing this. Yeah, I don't know. I would say to me the easy yoke has resulted in a ton of confidence. Because it's not resting on me anymore. I think the times in my life where I felt like it needed to be me performing, me achieving, me getting XYZ done, my self-image is low. But the times that I feel like I'm in step with him and I'm present to the moment and wearing the easy yoke, it feels good. It just feels easy, you know? Like in the book, John Mark Comer says, you can't actually ever choose an easy life. Things are gonna come, but you can choose the easy yoke.
At the beginning, I mentioned the question that John Ortberg asked when he received this answer about eliminating hurry. And the question was, what do I need to do to become the me that I want to be? And that's a question of identity, of soul searching, of knowing there's more that I know I have. There's potential. There's more I can bring to the table. But the power is not in my court at all. And it's so interesting how this conversation has talked about hurry as something to be deliberate with and to fight against, and to be intentional around. But at the same time, it sounds like we need to be deliberate with presence, and we need to fight for Sabbath and rest. What is the process? This is our closing question, because you guys are going to get to talk about this together in a second. What is the process of even just starting to implement some of these practices?
I'll get it started. Decide to live with nothing to prove to yourself or to others. I usually get in trouble when I look over my shoulder. You know, what about her? She's doing a better job. You know, there's more lights on her house than mine, you know, or whatever. So, yeah, the Martha Stewart. I'm disclosure, she's fine with people that have the margins. It's just, some of my best friends have margins and like her fine. So just live the lifestyle that will do the most important things first. And then if there isn't enough time for the second, it's okay. You've gotten the most important things done first. So don't try to prove anything to anyone else or yourself. Do the most important things first. Abide. So start there.
Gosh, I feel like it could be a whole subject in and of itself of what is the role of spiritual practices on a journey in your relationship with God. But I will do my best to very efficiently sort of paint a picture of what this looks like. Again, gosh, it helps that I'll give you another Dallas Willard quote. This whole book, the actual title of the book is a Dallas Willard quote. So there's a lot of connections there. And he sort of is one of the teachers that started introducing me to a lot of these ideas. And I'll get to the quote in a moment. But the spiritual disciplines, according to Willard, is anything you can do that enables you to do something that you cannot do by direct effort. So we have, I know that's very complicated. It's hard to download. That's the way Dallas Willard talks, unfortunately. But it's, there's certain things that are easy to do, like what Yvonne just said. I can decide to do some deep breathing. Like that's a quick, instant, easy, sort of accessible. My willpower has enough energy to stay. I'm going to set a timer for a minute and do some deep breathing in the presence of God. Just deciding to stop being angry, that's something I can't do. Like, it's not something I can just turn on and off that easily. So a spiritual discipline is anything you can do. It's a practice that's accessible to your will that enables you to do something that you can't do. So that's a little bit helpful for me to think about spiritual disciplines that way. See, these are tools that God has given us to put into our life, like solitude, like Sabbath. These are things that we can exert just enough will to get to that place. And then if we do it consistently enough, suddenly it starts to reap a harvest that extends beyond our willpower. And we begin to obey the way of Jesus out of habit rather than out of effort. Again, back to the easy yoke. So that's spiritual, like a 101 on how spiritual disciplines function in the human soul. You exert will to do the practice, and then you do that again and again and again, and eventually it starts to work beyond the practice into other areas of life.
I guess for me, the first time I read this quote, ruthlessly eliminate hurry, I wrote it down on a piece of paper and I put it in my car, and it didn't help me. And I think I've attempted different spiritual practices, and some of them don't help me. And I've even gone to school to study spiritual formation and soul care and go out on, 6-hour times of silence with the Lord. And those things have helped me a little. But I think the thing for me that has helped me the most is letting God tell me who I am. And welcoming that. Because I think as long as I'm out there trying to be somebody else, or I'm trying to compare to someone else, I'm not actually able to slow down. I feel like I'm still trapped in that cycle of hurry. And so for me, I have to know who I am and who I'm not. And I just have to show up as human size Yvonne and be just me and welcome that in an everyday life way.
I guess my thought is start small, manage your expectations. All of these practices, when I first read the book, I was like, cool, I only have to do 4 things and then I'll be fine. I just 4 things. I was not fine. But just taking one, take silence and solitude and be like, okay, today, I want to have a moment of that. Take 10 minutes if you can. If you can take 10 minutes, that's amazing. If you can take 1 minute, that's great. Just start somewhere. And if you can do it every day, awesome. If you can't, that's also okay. And that's how it goes for all of these. If you want to do the simplicity and you try to pare down your closet, get rid of 2 things. And like Aaron was talking about, it kind of grows and grows and snowballs, and over time it can create a much larger impact. But the biggest lesson for me in this was it can't all happen at one time.
All right. We have just realized that there is an iceberg under this topic, right? There are so many more things that we could keep talking about, but we want you to be able to sit in some of the things that have been said, reflect on some of the things that have been said. So I'm going to close the discussion with prayer, and then I believe we are breaking up into our breakout groups, and I'll have Andrea come up and explain more of how to do that after we pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for your presence. Thank you that you give us a whole life. And thank you that you are the strength to be able to experience that. I pray for our discussion as it continues and as each of us leave tonight, that you would remind us of the things that stood out to us and that you would empower us through your Spirit to know where to start in pursuing a life with you. And in your name, amen.
All right, well, thank you, each and every one of you. I think we all benefited from that talk. So if you, go ahead, you can clap. Yeah. Awesome. So if you are a sisterhood sister, we will do our normal groups so you can be dismissed and go back to your table. If you are not a sisterhood member, you can kind of just circle up in here, 5 or 6 people around you, and have a discussion on what you heard, and maybe a panelist will join you. We will see what ends up being. So, cool. At the end, I will come in and we will meet out in the lobby and we'll circle up. The sisterhood ladies always circle up and pray at the end, so we'll come get you and we can all circle up in the lobby for prayer at the end of the night.